Actress Mayim Bialik has entertained audiences around the world for over 3 decades. She blossomed as a child actress in Beaches and the TV show Blossom, and has continued to entertain audiences ever since. These days, she's wearing many hats as she continues her mission of Tikkun Olam. We are very happy to be joined by Mayim via Zoom from Los Angeles. Welcome to the show, and first, start by telling us how important was your Jewish identity growing up?
Growing up as just a kid in LA, I had my own particular, Jewish story. And, my grandparents were immigrants from Eastern Europe. So I was raised in a very particular culture. My parents, were born during World War II in America. And, I was raised with a very particular lens, I guess a very particular Jewish lens. When I entered sort of the public eye and I was on Blossom, from the years I was 14 to 19. And, I was not observant at that time. I definitely had a consciousness of Shabbat because, we would light candles growing up, but I wasn't a synagogue goer at that time, except for, holidays.
You're a huge advocate for Israel and the Jewish people. I know you have a lot of extended family here in Israel, but when did you actually develop your very strong spiritual connection to Israel?
The first time I went to Israel, I was 16. A lot of my family made Aliyah after the Yom Kippur War. So there was a whole portion of my family that I really didn't meet until I was an adult. Back then, Israel programming was a thing in various stages, of its kind of infancy in the 90s. It was a time when we first started hearing Zionism is racism. And, we had never heard that before. We had never seen that chalked on floors, and we had never seen swastikas in our lives. I went to Israel, during the Second Intifada, and, I was there. I was going when nobody wanted you to go. And I was, and I'm not saying that to be a hero, because that's what I kept saying to people. Like, my family lives there. I have dozens of family members who send their children to school that I'm not a hero for visiting Israel and seeing my family and staying on kibbutz with my secular family and learning about their political perspectives on the Matzav.
You also took a 12-year break from the public eye to have kids and get a doctorate in neuroscience at UCLA mixed with a minor in Jewish studies. You're now an observant Jew, but did you know growing up of your relationship to Israel's most famous poet and literary pioneer, Mayim Bialik?
That's right. My great-grandfather's first cousin was Mayim Bialik. And my grandfather died before I was old enough to understand kind of the impact of that and ask what that was like. But obviously we have a tremendous amount of pride in our name, our identity. There was always my dad had a photograph of Bialik Street, one of the Bialik Streets, framed in our house my whole life. And I am an active museum goer. I always go to the Bialik Museum when I'm in Tel Aviv. I don't know if you can see it. Yeah, my Bialik library is a certain section over there.
Awesome.
And yeah, it's I always tell people, like, my last name is actually more interesting in Israel than I think my first name. Although my first name is also interesting since I am named Mayim, like water. But yeah, tremendous sense of pride and especially when I would meet professors at UCLA, it's the first thing they would ask, like, are you related? And, especially I took literature classes and I had many professors who were incredibly interested in my last name.
And professionally, you're now currently gracing 2 different TV networks as the host of Jeopardy and also starring in the sitcom Call Me Kat, which is now in its 3rd season. Tell us more.
One of the wonderful things about hosting Jeopardy is you don't have to be good at it because all of the clues are written down. Things that I have to be good at for hosting Jeopardy are really, in many cases unrelated to what a lot of people think. I need to be able to listen to a person talking in my ear all day while standing in heels and reading lots of things. Yeah. Jeopardy is incredibly iconic. When I was on Blossom, we had a fantasy sequence where Alex Trebek guest starred, and we had a Jeopardy sequence. So it's such a part of, obviously our cultural vernacular. It's a show about a woman, that's me. And we've had 3 years of a lot of fun. we filmed during COVID, which is no small feat. It's very difficult to film during COVID. We like to think of ourselves as, we're like a warm hug. We're not looking to do Shakespeare, and sitcom, serves a very specific purpose of entertainment in a very specific kind of modality. And I'm grateful, to still be on television. I'm grateful that people want to see this face in that little TV box. So, I do love that I get to work with cats, because I am a cat person in real life.
You're also very passionate about doing your part to get rid of the stigma surrounding mental health challenges. Tell us about your popular podcast, Mayim Bialik's Breakdown, which is also available on your YouTube channel.
Yeah, we basically talk about all things mental health and mental wellness. And we started this during the pandemic because we realized that our own mental health was definitely taking dips and turns and dives. And we realized that so many people may not even have the basic vocabulary to understand their own mental health. We have a mental health crisis. Like, we're deep in a mental health crisis and have been for some time. And I think the way the whole kind of culture is shifting around the way we speak about misogyny, the way we speak about the patriarchy, the way we speak about systemic injustice, whatever that means, like, those are all conversations that lead to us understanding kind of best how we can live better. I can say this as the mother of a 14 and a 17-year-old. Our children have whatever struggles we had, and we have whatever struggles our parents had. And especially, there's a lot of conversation about intergenerational trauma. And this has been something, honestly, in the Jewish community and in specifically research coming out of Israel. The notion of intergenerational trauma is something that, used to be kind of spoken about in hushed tones. It was this kind of like dirty secret that, like, oh my gosh, like, what our parents experienced, what our grandparents experienced. There are ways that those impact, our coping mechanisms and our chemistry, literally.